1 goal, 0 assists, 8 appearances, only 7 of them starts. By his own impossible standards, Lamine Yamal's World Cup 2026 was quiet, almost underwhelming, and it ended with him lifting the trophy anyway. This is the real story of Lamine Yamal's World Cup, not the highlight reel version, the actual one, the injury doubt, a stat line that undersold him, and a 19th birthday that landed right in the middle of the biggest month of his life. Because sometimes the making of a legend isn't about the numbers at all. To understand why this World Cup mattered so much, you have to understand the 3 years that came before it, because nobody in the modern history of the sport has broken more records faster than Lamine Yamal. He joined Barcelona's La Masia Academy at 7 years old on the 29th of April 2023, aged just 15 years and 290 days. He made his first team debut against Real Betis at Camp Nou, the youngest player ever to represent Barcelona's senior side, breaking a record that had stood since before either of his parents were born. 4 months later, on the 8th of September 2023, he made his Spain debut against Georgia, coming off the bench at 16 years and 57 days old to become the youngest player in his country's history. Then he scored on debut, becoming Spain's youngest ever goal scorer in the same match. 2 records broken in the same 74 minutes, both of them taken from his own Barcelona teammate, Gavi. The 2023-24 season kept adding to the pile. Youngest player to start a La Liga match in the 21st century. Youngest scorer in La Liga history, aged 16 years and 87 days, against Granada. Youngest starter in Champions League history. By the time the season ended, Lamine Yamal was not a promising talent anymore. He was already statistically one of the most record-breaking teenagers the sport had ever produced. And then came Euro 2024. He started the tournament opener against Croatia as the youngest player ever to feature at a European championship. He set up Dani Carvajal's goal in that same match, becoming the youngest player to register an assist in the competition's history. In the semi-final against France, at 16 years old, he scored a curling, sweeping strike from outside the box that leveled the match and sent Spain toward the final, instantly one of the great teenage goals in tournament history. In the final against England, he set up Nico Williams for the winner, his 4th assist of the tournament, a joint record. Spain won. Yamal was named Young Player of the tournament, and on the 14th of July 2024, the day after his 17th birthday, he lifted a major international trophy, becoming the youngest player in history to do it, breaking a record that had belonged to Pelé since 1958. The 2 years that followed only raised the expectations further. 18 goals and more than 20 assists in the 2024-25 season as Barcelona won a domestic treble. Back-to-back Copa trophies as the world's best under-23 player, runner-up for the 2025 the Ballon d'Or, finishing behind only Ousmane Dembélé. By the time the 2026 World Cup arrived, Lamine Yamal was not just Spain's brightest young player. He was arguably the most hyped teenager in the history of the sport, carrying expectations that would have crushed most 25-year-olds. And then, just weeks before the tournament began, disaster. Yamal suffered a grade 2 tear in his left hamstring, scoring a penalty for Barcelona. He became a doubt for Spain's opening matches. The most anticipated World Cup debut in years suddenly had an asterisk next to it before a ball had even been kicked in North America. Spain opened their campaign with a goalless draw against Cape Verde in Atlanta. Yamal, still working his way back from injury, was introduced from the bench for the final 19 minutes. In that short cameo, he created a genuine chance, got 2 shots away, and fired 10 passes into the penalty area. Even hobbled, even undercooked, he still looked like Spain's most dangerous outlet. It was a glimpse of what was coming, but only a glimpse. Through the rest of the group stage and into the knockout rounds, Yamal's numbers stayed modest by his own extraordinary standard. 1 goal against Saudi Arabia in the group stage. and no assists despite having led the entirety of Euro 2024 in that exact category 2 years earlier. 8 appearances, 615 minutes. A quiet World Cup, statistically, from a player who had never had a quiet tournament in his life. But here is what those numbers do not show. On the 13th of July, 2026, the eve of Spain's semifinal, Lamine Yamal turned 19 years old, a teenager technically for almost this entire tournament, carrying a Spain team that had conceded almost nothing all summer, that had eliminated Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal in the round of 16, and that arrived at the final against Argentina as one of the most complete sides the tournament had produced. And on the 19th of July, 2026, Spain beat Argentina 1-0 after extra time in the World Cup final. Lamine Yamal, 19 years old, was a World Cup champion. He did not win the FIFA Young Player Award for the tournament. That went to his own Barcelona teammate and Spain center-back Pau Cubarsí, recognized for a defensive campaign that conceded almost nothing. Rodri took home the Adidas Golden Ball as the tournament's outstanding player. Unai Simon claimed the Golden Glove. By the strict individual metrics FIFA hands out at the end of a World Cup, Lamine Yamal was not even the most decorated teenager on his own team, and that is precisely why this story matters more, not less, because the making of a legend was never really about whether Lamine Yamal produced spectacular individual numbers at this specific tournament. It is about what he now holds, regardless of those numbers: 2 major international trophies before the age of 20. A European Championship won as the youngest player in the competition's history, a World Cup won as a teenager for almost the entire campaign. Nobody in the modern era has stacked that kind of collective success at that age. Not Messi, not Ronaldo, not Mbappe. Pelé did it in 1958 and 1962, and it took him until his second World Cup at 21 to complete the pair. Lamine Yamal did it by 19. The quiet numbers tell you something else too, something arguably more important than any goal tally could. A team can win a World Cup around a superstar having an off tournament by his own standards, and it can still win because the collective was strong enough to carry the weight when the individual brilliance did not fully arrive. That is not a weakness in Yamal's story. It might be the most mature chapter in it. The teenager who broke every record for individual audacity also learned at 19 what it means to win when the moment does not need him to be the hero, only to be present, contributing, and part of something bigger than his own numbers. 2 trophies, 1 teenager, a World Cup where the stat sheet undersold him and the medal told the real story anyway. Is this already the greatest teenage career in the history of football? Where's the best of Lamine Yamal still to come? Drop your take in the comments.